Today with us is a very energetic young person who is trying her best efforts to preserve Maharashtrian culture in United Kingdom, and her name is Natasha Patwardhan. And before starting this talk, I want her to give a little bit her introduction to everyone, and we will begin with this.
Thank you. Thanks, Rohit. So yeah, hi everybody. I'm Natasha Patwardhan, and I've lived my whole life in the UK. I've just started a Instagram and a Facebook account called Miss Marathi, where I share blogs about being a Maharashtrian but growing up in the UK, and how things are different for us there, how there's clashes for us when it comes to language, food, etc., and just how it's different being a Maharashtrian in London than being just an Indian in London. So it's been a really good way for me to connect with my culture again, you know, just through writing and through talking to people and through speaking more and eating more Maharashtrian things, just immersing myself in my culture. And it has been really rewarding. And yeah, I'm just really happy I get to talk to all of you today.
You are a second generation Maharashtrian. And how does that bring you so much close to Maharashtra? This is the curiosity thing. So please say about this.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think from my experience, there's definitely people who are lucky to have their influence of culture around them, like if they live in India, but there's also people like me who don't have that. So it's essentially up to us to make any kind of effort, be it big or small, to bring ourselves closer to our culture. And the good thing about the UK is that it has a really big Indian influence. But what's brought me closer to being Maharashtrian specifically is probably my family, to be honest, because I've been lucky enough to have them, you know, make me speak Marathi at home, or make me eat this, or make me learn this. So it's being pushed into it and then eventually taking the reins and doing it yourself. So now, after many years, I like going to India. I like coming to Mumbai. I like picking up the phone and speaking to my Aji in Marathi. So it's definitely been something I've had to do for myself quite a lot than having influence around me.
How do you describe the cultural clash in UK? Like English culture or in a way European culture and Marathi culture. When they clash at each other, what happens? Positive and negatives, both.
Yeah, there's definitely cultural clashes. And I think even now, I would say I'm not fully integrated into being English or Marathi. I'm sort of somewhere in the middle. Sometimes I feel more English than Marathi and vice versa, because I think because they're so polar opposite, they're really, really conflicted. And I find it quite weird to think that when I'm in India, I actually feel more European, and when I'm in the UK, I feel more Maharashtrian. So when it comes to the way culture merges with each other, I think the only real things that Europeans know about being Indian is our food, Bollywood songs, Bhangra music. So it's very heavily influenced by North Indians. So there's no real sort of exposure to Maharashtrian culture and what they like and don't like about it. They just don't know about it. And I think for me, growing up in the UK has made me like certain ways about living in the UK and also not really like. So I think a simple thing would be that in the UK, people follow systems. So traffic cues, it's something that's a very Indian thing. It's not really something you see in the UK. So I think following rules is something I do appreciate. But then things about learning culture, you know, family strength, keeping with your family, these are things that are very Indian, very, very positive. And they're not just specific to Maharashtrian culture. So I think that as I spend more time in India, rather than just having a holiday in India, I'll come to see more of that. But the clash is something that you have to manage for yourself, to be honest.
Do you feel anytime very much frustrated, like only speaking English 24/7, 365 days in UK, and listening someone speaking Marathi, or you speaking sometimes in live Marathi? in that language. Do you feel privileged about that?
I think with growing up in the UK, English comes very naturally to me because it's what I've learned since nursery. It's what I speak when I'm with my friends, with my colleagues. Anytime I'm outside my home, that's what I speak. So it makes more sense to speak that outside of home. But the minute I come home, I automatically start speaking in Marathi. It's almost like a reflex. And I think what I find frustrating about the language in particular is that when I speak Marathi to Marathi people, they don't understand what I'm saying because my grammar's a bit incorrect, my accent's a little bit weird. So the way that Indians feel when they speak English to English people, I feel the same way when I speak Marathi to Marathi people. So it's like a reverse kind of role, to be honest. Marathi does come more naturally to me now by, having the confidence to speak it more to my family. But it is frustrating. It's frustrating that I don't have the ease with it as the same as my peers do. But I think that only comes with practice and exposure.
Now is the time of social media, and before social media started, what efforts Marathi people in Europe or UK were taking to preserve their culture?
That's a good question. There's definitely been a lot happening over the years, and I think Maharashtrians, being a smaller Indian community, like we're not like Punjabis or Gujaratis where there's loads of us, but for a small community like us, we've preserved it through a lot of European Marathi Sammelans that happen sort of all over Europe, not just in the UK, but in Switzerland. Lots of things happen in America. There's lots of Maharashtrian organizations that are also in London. I think the most well-known one is definitely Maharashtra Mandal London, which is based in North London. So on top of that, I've been lucky enough to have a lot of family members and family friend members who've been heavily involved in promoting and organizing Marathi shows across Europe. So that has definitely brought the Marathi community together. Not just shows, things like movie premieres or charitable shows or plays. So there's always been a lot since before, 20, 30 years ago. It's always been there. It's just before social media, it was really hard to get exposure for this when the community itself was so small. And I think for me, when I was little and I was sort of forced to go to all of these things by my parents, I didn't take an interest in it because I didn't understand it and I didn't see how it helped me to relate to my current life in London. Like, how did this add to me? I never felt it when I was a child. But I think, once you give it time and you start to see how amazing these artists are, the dances are, the songs are, then it helps you to fuel your curiosity in the culture. But again, my family was a very, very big driving force to this. And I think now we're lucky enough to have social media where we can share blogs, we can do interviews, we can do all of these live events, and that's great. It's made it really good. But at the same time, as a second generation Maharashtrians, I don't feel that a lot of organizations have helped to bridge the gap between being English and being Maharashtrian. So there's still a long way to go, but I think social media has helped people from totally different environments who are Maharashtrian to come together. So there is now common ground with that.
You being a Maharashtrian there, what did your English counterparts or European counterparts understood or learned from Marathi culture, and what you learned from their culture? Anything specific? And one more question is that what you like and don't like about their culture, again, the Europe's and English people, and what they like and don't like about our culture. Like, this is an academic question for a people who have curiosity.
Yeah, again, their exposure to Maharashtrians is small. If you were to ask a European what's a Maharashtrian, they wouldn't know what to say. They'd ask, oh, where's that person from? So I think the first thing to do is to make them help them to understand who Maharashtrians are and how different to our other Indian community brothers and sisters. That hasn't happened yet. So Europe Maharashtrians are, unfortunately, but I think that can change only if we pull together as a community. And again, that's when it comes to the point of English people and Maharashtrians who've been brought up in England not being able to have a common ground because their cultures are so different. So I think that's the problem that we have there, but it's not something that's a lost cause. When it comes to liking things about the way Europeans are, the way things are in the UK, I think there's advantages and disadvantages to every way of life. So when I'm in London, I like the cold weather. I like how easy it is to use public transport. I like that I have my privacy. You know, no one's in each other's lives all the time. But in India, sometimes I feel that the way of life here is so much more social. People know each other, you know, adults, old people, young people, they have a respect for each other that you don't really see in the core of English family life. So it's a fine line, though. I think there's a very fine line there between privacy and family support. And that's the main thing that I like as well as dislike about living in the UK, for sure.
So, are you updated about any news which takes place in Mumbai or Maharashtra? I know it's a very illogical question in a way, but in depth, what I want to ask is that how you behave whenever any news you get from Mumbai or Maharashtra, be it of politics, be it of any tragedy, be it of any big thing like happening in Mumbai or Maharashtra. How do Marathi people or Europeans react to that? Whenever in your observation, what you have seen about this?
I think when it comes to news about Maharashtra, I mean, in the UK, we barely get news about India as a whole. We have Star News. I think that's probably the most well-known one. But things like newspapers, you know, easy access to Indian websites, we don't really have. So that detail isn't easily, like, we're not aware of it, basically, unless I ask my parents, because they talk to our family more in India, so they know more things about it. And they also have more of an interest in it because it's affected them more than it's going to be affecting me. But when it comes to news from Maharashtra that reaches Europeans, it's mainly always to do with Mumbai, because the problem is everyone knows about Mumbai, but no one knows about Maharashtra, which is a little bit weird, to be honest, but it is what it is. So I think more than news, people know about history more than what's happening currently. So when it comes to negative news, obviously things like the bomb blasts that happen in Mumbai, a lot of Europeans do know about this. Things like hotels in Mumbai or the way tourists are able to live in Mumbai, people know about that. But politics, I think Indian politics is something that is probably 10 times more complicated than UK politics, and I think it's really hard for us to pay attention to Indian politics when we don't even know what's going on with ours, especially during COVID. So it's not easy, I will say.
Maharashtra has a very old legacy called as Purogami Maharashtra. Especially this culture, Purogami Maharashtra. What efforts are Marathi people taking there to preserve that legacy of that culture? Because the reason I am asking you this question is that you mentioned about Jingat song in your bio, and Jingat song comes from Sairat movie, and Sairat movie is about the clashes which takes place within a culture regarding hierarchies, class or caste. So please speak about this.
Yeah, it's such a sensitive topic. I mean, I think the simple answer to this question is that there is no room for casteism outside of Maharashtra. When what I've seen is people that have moved from Maharashtra to the UK or wherever else, it's just not a problem that you encounter because, I mean, in terms of the UK, when Maharashtrians come here, they have to hold on to each other. So every little part of culture that we can share together as a group, we have to keep it positive. So that's why you see small pockets of Maharashtrians everywhere in the UK, because once you come here, the culture shock is so huge that you miss your home more than anything. You miss speaking Marathi more than anything, and you miss familiarity. So I think I personally have that privilege of never having to experience casteism or colorism, for that matter. But I'm sure a lot of Maharashtrians have had to. And I think I don't tend to have rigid opinions on a lot of things, but this is one thing that I will say, there's just no place for small-mindedness like that. And, 20 to 30 years ago, when racism was really bad in the UK, it didn't matter if you were from India or if you were dark or if you were white or if, you're an albino or whatever. We are all immigrants. We are all brown immigrants. So there's no distinction to Europeans about caste. It's a very internalized Maharashtrian issue. And that's definitely a good thing that happens when you come out of Maharashtra. You're not seen as, oh, you're up here and you're down here. It just goes away. It vanishes. And I'm really, really happy about that. Yeah.
Being in UK, especially you Maharashtrian people, which are the plays or nataks, TV programs, movies in the context of Marathi language, I'm saying, or culture, mostly do you discuss, talk, and how does that impact European people or English people's taste of art?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think, again, the accessibility is the issue. I really wish that we had, Marathi channels that were easily there on British cable TV, but it just unfortunately doesn't happen. So again, it comes back to us having to find it out for ourselves. And I think the last Marathi TV program that everyone used to talk about was Kunku. That was very, very famous. Everyone used to watch it. But I think I personally am more into Marathi movies. So, the really heavy movies like Kakasparsh, Nattarang is also a really, really good one. The only way that we can actually find out about these is if we go to India or if we look at what the Maharashtrian community is watching. But it's hard to find that. And I think another thing is that even if I understand Marathi, if you look at the way people do speak in these Marathi shows and films, they speak very fast. And there's almost different Marathi accents as well, which I have trouble understanding. So it's difficult. I wouldn't say that there's a Marathi influence as such on European affinity towards art, but there's definitely an Indian influence now. So a lot of things like, fabric patterns or the way people paint or the style and the richness. There is a lot of Indian influence on the way English people do view art. But to make it Maharashtrian, I think we still have a long time to go. But I think it's possible. That's the thing. I think Maharashtrians, we forget sometimes how vibrant our culture actually is. We just need to push it forward. And I think things like plays, especially theatre, is something that's very Maharashtrian. So if there was a way to simplify them or make them happen more in the UK, then I'm sure that more people will watch them.
People who are in UK belonging from Maharashtra, obviously, how do they celebrate their festivals at that place, and how do Europeans react to that? And when Europeans celebrate their festivals, or take it English people, how you react? What cultural understanding take place in the middle of such festival celebrations?
Mm-hmm. I think the first thing I'll say is that any kind of positive celebration is something that we should all take part in. It shouldn't be segregated. And I think London, being a very cosmopolitan city, allows for all sorts of people to celebrate all sorts of things. And Indian culture is something that a lot of people they like it. It would be weird to think that we don't celebrate Indian festivals. There are massive celebrations in the UK, across the whole of the UK, when it comes to Diwali, Holi, everything, to be honest. During Diwali in Trafalgar Square, which is one of the main landmarks in central London, the whole area gets taken over and becomes a huge charity show. On special occasions in the Hindu calendar, the Prime Minister actually does wish the nation to appeal to that community. So I think, I mean, I've never lived anywhere else, but I'm so thankful for being able to be in London where we feel like we're included and like it's okay to celebrate our festival. So yeah, it definitely does happen. And I would say probably 10 years ago, Ganesh Chaturthi was not very big. Slowly it is, because now if you look at how Ganesh Chaturthi is projected in movies, it's become a lot more commercial. And I think because Europeans know about Bollywood, they now know more about Ganesh Chaturthi. So any kind of Marathi influence that we can get in the commercial world, something that everyone will see, will like lightning appear everywhere, which is started happening. I think what I like about European festivals is that it's about family when day-to-day life in Europe is not really about family. So festivals like Easter or Christmas, there's a spirit in London, like a very fuzzy, warm sort of feeling. So it's nice to take part in it. I think the food is horrendous, but everything apart from that, it brings people together. And I think everyone loves celebration. When it comes to how I celebrate Marathi festivals, I think I'm more cultural than religious, and I prefer to do it on a more personal level. So, I mean, I'll go out and celebrate Ganesh Chaturthi and all of that in London, but what I prefer and what my family prefers is we make Maharashtrian food during Ganesh Chaturthi. We do our aarti every morning. You know, we set up our Ganpati by ourselves as a family, and we invite Maharashtrian friends and family over. So much like how they would do it in Mumbai and Pune, that's how we want to replicate it in London, because it's such a personal festival for us. So yeah, I think we're definitely on the way with merging cultures through celebrations in Europe. So it's nice. And I have to say that when celebrations like this do come around, it makes me feel closer to my culture without having to.
If any Maharashtrian person is going to come to UK permanently as an immigrant or for any whatever reason, what advice you will give to that person or individual if he wants to survive in Europe or UK? I know Google has many answers about this, or Quora, but what will be your answer from your wisdom?
That's a really good question, actually. I think the first thing that comes into my head would be to find a way to integrate yourself in the UK without forgetting where you come from. Because what I see a lot of is people come here and they either want to be really English or they don't integrate at all. And you have to find a happy medium. So don't be a wannabe, and at the same time, stay true to yourself and stay true to your community by integrating yourself with both sides. And it's difficult. It doesn't happen in the same day. It doesn't happen in a year. It took, I mean, I'm nearly 30 now, and I still don't feel like one or the other. I still have my own frustrations. So that will take time, but it's possible. And I think on top of that, I keep going back to the fact that you shouldn't forget where you're from, but it's so easy to forget where you're from. And once you forget, then that's it. Then there's nothing that will make you different to your neighbor. So I think my dad used to tell me a lot of things when I was little that, you know, you're not going to understand why you're learning this, but 40 years from now, that's when you understand. I'm not 40, but the point is I understand now and how important it is. So that's something that will stop you from feeling lonely. And I think those are the two main things. The rest, it's easy to come to London and live because, you know, there's clear signs everywhere. People follow rules, as I've said. So living in London is not going to be hard, but definitely be prepared for, you know, the lack of taste in your food and the weather. I think people cannot comprehend how cold it can get. But again, it's something that people get used to.
As being a Marathi speaker my own self, I have seen in Maharashtra, implies India only, but as we are speaking about Maharashtrian culture, I am taking Maharashtra for a while. English has become a class nowadays, and people look very like what I want to say is that they undermine their own native languages. As you speak English, you are from that English country only. How do you, what are your views on this thing? English becoming a class.
I think it depends when people say class. If it means that people are better because they can speak English, then I mean that's just ridiculous because it's not true. And you know what? Kids in Maharashtra, kids in any school in India, they learn English and another language in school and probably speak a whole different language at home. So they already know more than English children. And look, just because I speak English with an English accent, it doesn't make me better than any of those kids or any of those from Mumbai to London. I think it's about perspective, and to look down on because they speak a certain way or don't speak a certain way is just, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And I think glorification of the West, it needs to be looked at quite a lot because, as I said, there's good things about the West, just the same way that there's good things about India. But this whole idea that white is better and English is better is just, it's dated. And I think that's something that really does need to be worked on. And yeah, it's not right, basically.
Do you want to share any inspirational moment of your life with people which will make them a better human being like you?
Like me. I still have a lot to learn. I have to say it's a work in progress. I think staying hungry is really important. So having inspirational moments changes over time. What you think is inspirational then is not inspirational now. So I think the most inspirational moments for me would be very personal to my family. So seeing my little brother achieve things, you know, the way that my mum has defended me, the way that my dad has always been by my side, these are inspiring moments to me. And I think as I've got older, I've seen how important my family actually is. And as you get older and watch them grow further away from you, you grip onto them. So my inspiring moments are constant because I'm constantly trying to like keep myself near them. And I think, you know, to inspire people, you have to go through things in your life. They could be good, they could be bad. So there's never a moment when you stop learning and stop getting inspired. So I think the advice I would give people would be to stop chasing a dream or a pinnacle and then settling for yourself. The learning is constant. So yeah.
Any book, movies, talks, shows, articles you want to recommend people?
I think when it comes to reading, the minute I pick a book up, I don't actually stop reading. It's something I've not had to do in a long, long time just because I haven't had the time. But I think reading wise, I am a very, very big Harry Potter fan. I always have been. Anything that's a long book that you can immerse yourself in is perfect for me. I really want to, I think one of my dreams is to be able to learn to read and write Marathi. And I think that's when I can truly sort of look into Marathi scriptures and Marathi books, like things like Deshpande's stuff. It's stuff that I want to read, but it's not only that I can't read it, I won't be able to understand the way it's written. So that question, there's still definitely a gap there. When it comes to things like shows, I think anything on Netflix is pretty okay. But I do want to start looking into more Marathi shows. I haven't watched a single recent Marathi show because we don't get the shows in London. So any recommendations are more than welcome.
Which are the people you want to say thank you and why? And I will request you to answer this question if possible in Marathi, if possible only.
I really don't think I can speak in Marathi. I get very nervous. I think I'll stick to English just because I don't know how to say it. But I think the only person I would say sorry and thank you to is probably my aji. I know that's a bit random because I've been rambling on about my mum and my dad and my brother, but I think the main awe that I have for someone in my family is my aji, who is 80 plus now. She's lived her whole life in Dadar, and she speaks Marathi fluently. She speaks English fluently. She looks after herself, and she looks after her whole family too. And I think that is the epitome of a strong female. And it's really hard to be a strong female in India. It's probably 10 times harder, to be totally honest. So I think that's definitely someone I would say thank you to. The person I would say sorry to is also probably the same. I would say sorry to my aji, because I think all of us have regrets, but when it comes to the elderly people in our family, to not keep in touch with them because of a language barrier, it's unacceptable. And sometimes I feel that I realize that a little too late. Thankfully, there's still time, but I think I always feel like it's never been enough time with my family, particularly the elderly people in my family. आणि मला मराठी येतं, मी बोलते, but not all the time. So I need to work on that and my confidence.
The reason I asked you to speak in Marathi is that people have the curiosity, how can a Indian origin person of Marathi language can speak in Marathi? Like he is always or she is always speaking in English 365 days and throughout her lifetime. That was the only reason I asked you. And last question for our interview is that, do you have any question for me?
Yes. So you do interviews and things with people. So I want to know two things. What do you want to learn from these interviews, and what made you start doing this?
Okay, so my answer to your first question is that what I want to know from these interviews, and what exactly I want to know is that actually this interviews nourishes me mentally, and it gives me a samadhan, implies satisfaction, and we have only one life, and I believe that somewhere you have this spark within you that you don't regret that you didn't did anything for that. So I feel that sharing your knowledge and information with people, that gives me a satisfaction. That's the only reason. And what was your second question? I forgot it, sorry.
That's fine. I think I just wanted to know what made you start doing this.
Okay, what made me start doing this? I believed that I had a belief system that there are many places like this might sound very irrational, like in always believe that we need to apply at a place, then we need to give interviews, then they will take or might not take you or might not consider you. But under every person's imagination there is a practical imagination that he can do a thing that he wants, which fits in his own practical limits. He can do that thing, and where he will be where he will decide all the things. And so that was the belief system that motivated me to do this, probably.
Brilliant. Lovely. That's great. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been a really fun interview, actually.
तर मित्रांनो, sorry I spoke in Marathi, not a regret at all. So friends,
never say sorry for speaking in Marathi.
Yeah, this because it was in my head that this interview is intended to be in English only. And so guys, I will take your leave, and thank you so much Natasha Patwardhan for speaking with people. And I hope that everyone takes some inspiration and motivation from her, along with whatever knowledge she has shared about whatever about her observations regarding Marathi culture. And Natasha, you progress a lot in life. Go ahead in life. Thank you so much for speaking with Vaman Matters.